setting up Amitabh Bachchan's residence was incidentally our very first residential project. I all went all suited up, decked up, thinking I'll get a chance to meet Isha Ambani. What a beautiful palace they have made, and it was definitely a moment to cherish. My dad refused to teach me anything. He's like कि अपने आप देखो, जानो, सीखो, and I was extremely angry and upset with him about that. So I learned everything from scratch: accounting, sales, marketing, production, managing people, everything. I don't want to get stuck in this rut of this daily grind. That's why my vision was that let the business run without me.
Right.
Every time anyone would ask me, Vipul कि बड़े होके क्या करना है, पता नहीं क्या करना है, but बिल्कुल definitely a family business तो बिल्कुल नहीं करना है. So moving from that to actually now being in the business for almost a decade, it's still a mystery to me. Sitting on a chair is like probably wearing the right fitted clothes.
Sitting is the new smoking. It's a real problem that exists.
It is not just sitting, but it's, I think, our entire overall lifestyle. It's not just the chair to blame.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode in the podcast Business Networking. So, I have a very good friend with me on the podcast today. He is one of the most dynamic people I have met. His name is Parth, and he is the CEO of Maxim's Concept Chairs based in Mumbai. Like you might have seen on the introduction, his chairs have been part of many celebrity offices as well as several well-known hotel chains. His chairs have been in places like Mr. Bachchan's office, Isha Ambani's office, and so on. So he is in that sense a celebrity chair maker himself. So a little introduction of Parth. He did his schooling from Vasant Vihar School in Thane. Thereafter, he graduated from the St. Xavier's College in Mumbai in sociology and anthropology. And he was one of the select 50 students of Swaraj University in Udaipur. And thereafter, he joined his family business of Maxims, which was started by his father, Jitu Dave, and his mother. So he is married to Aarti, who is in the business of art-based theater and workshops for corporates. His burning desire, and that is from the point from where I'm going to begin today, is he wants to take a 3-month vacation wherever and whenever he wants, and still wants to be able to build his business. So that's the kind of person we have on the podcast today. Welcome, Parth. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So let's begin with what struck me about two things. Actually struck me about your introduction when I was reading your profile. So one is that you studied sociology and anthropology, and then you move into business and and especially in the business of seating systems. So first, if you can tell us about that change, and secondly is your burning desire is to go on this 3-month vacation and yet make sure your business is running smoothly. So can you just tell two very different things, but kind of strikingly different, and therefore I just thought I'll start off with that today. Over to you.
Sure, Vipul. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. So even I never imagined, Vipul, one is I'll ever study subjects like sociology and anthropology in my life. I also never imagined that I'll end up joining my dad's business.
Right.
I never imagined I will have a dream like a 3-month vacation kind of a dream.
Right.
So these things were completely unplanned. It just happened, maybe because it was just meant to happen.
Right.
I remember when I entered college, I had a very clear goal that I want to, in fact, do my major in political science. And that changed because, my interest changed. And I realized that I just want to study for the joy of it, not because is ye karke aage kuch hoga. So that cause and effect didn't quite fit in. And that's why I just simply chose what I enjoyed studying.
Okay.
So that was that. And after that, as you mentioned about, joining the business or having this lofty idea of a 3-month vacation.
Right.
So because I did not have any background in business, I learned everything from scratch. My dad refused to teach me anything. He's like कि अपने आप देखो, जानो, सीखो, And I was extremely, angry and upset with him about that. So I learned everything from scratch: accounting, sales, marketing, production, managing people, everything. And
Okay.
that's when I realized that I don't want to get stuck in this rut of this daily grind. And
Okay.
that's why my vision was that, let the business run without me.
Okay.
And so that's why this vision of one of the business running and growing in spite of my absence.
Right.
And I think that's what led me to also start seeking out and learning from various people out there,
Correct.
because I realized, boss, I have zero experience, never done a job before, never did an internship before. So if I want to kind of win in this game of business, I need to take external support from various business coaches. That's why I signed up for various courses. So one that helped me to also understand how to run a business as a business owner and not as a chair manufacturer.
Okay.
And secondly, how that can ultimately help me to achieve my vision of like an autopilot kind of a system.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So, in fact, I'm glad you said that you wanted to study political science and all of that, because I remember my early memory of you was when you actually came in as a substitute for your father in one of the meetings, and I remember seeing you then, and you were this. I don't know if you remember, but you were like this little geeky NGO type of a guy, and I was like, and few years later I see you walking in as representing maxims, and I was like, is it the same guy I met, that idealistic
Yeah,
guy I had met? And I am sure you'll remember that part. And it's a completely different individual, and what you said earlier kind of explains that you kind of learned it on the job. So, I mean, what prompted that change? I mean, is there something that prompted you to look at business? Because you are a totally different person, I know. I mean, how did that happen? Very intriguing. I mean, if you I mean, if there's something confidential or something personal, please feel free not to say. But if there is something you can tell us, that'll be great.
sure, absolutely. So I think right from the start, Vipul, I've kind of just simply gone ahead with whatever I liked doing. So back then, I enjoyed working with NGOs and teaching underprivileged children. So I did that for a few years. Then I remember starting a social enterprise during
Yeah.
my college time, where I tied up with a group of underprivileged women. They would make these eco-friendly cloth bags. I hired a few interns to kind of sell them and to market. So I just simply did whatever I enjoyed doing, without thinking of what will that lead me to.
Right.
So similarly, I never imagined, as I told you, that I would end up ever joining my family business. That was the last thing on my mind.
Right.
Every time anyone would ask me, विपुल कि बड़े होके क्या करना है, पता नहीं क्या करना है, but बिल्कुल definitely a family business तो बिल्कुल नहीं करना है. So that kind of clarity. So moving from that to actually now being in the business for almost a decade, it's still a mystery to me. There is no logical explanation.
Okay.
And even I'm surprised myself how I landed up here.
Okay.
But it's simply the need of the hour, the situation. I ended up, one fine day, my dad called me, why don't you spend a few days in office? You're in Bombay. And one thing led to another. He's like, why don't you help me out? I'm occupied with other things. And I was like, yaar, main free baitha hu, chalo. Maybe by that time I had that little open-mindedness to,
Yeah.
kind of help out, contribute in whatever way I could. That was my initial interaction and my starting point into the business. कि
Okay.
मैं तो help करने के लिए आया हूँ. So that was my entry point.
And then you
And
started liking it.
yeah, dhire dhire, of course, not
Yeah.
overnight. It took a few months and years.
Right.
But yeah, that's the story.
Okay, superb. So yeah, so it's an organic process, as I would imagine. So there were nothing drastic, no real God sent kind of opportunity. It just grew. You just joined the business for a few days and then you enjoyed doing it. Is that the way I can interpret that?
Yeah, more or less. I remember when I joined also, I was a bit afraid that what if I get stuck in this? What if I don't like this? So I told my dad, I'll work for you for 6 months. I'll give my 100%. If I don't like it, I'll leave after 6 months. So don't ask me. That is the kind of terms and conditions I had with him. Ha, ki bhai hai na, I need to have an exit plan, So yeah, but then those 6 months have now become 9 years, and never, never decided to choose that exit path. But it grew on me, dhire dhire, interest, passion, and initially we had a lot of conflicts. Vipul, I joined thinking I will just help out wherever I can, and my dad thought in his head I have taken over the business. So there were a lot of misunderstandings, and he would keep complaining to me, why aren't you growing the business? And I was like, growing the business, I'm just here to help out in whatever I can. So that went on for a few months, of course, but then eventually, I also felt like, let me do something. How can I kind of take this to the next level? So yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, so your company, I mean, take a few minutes and tell us about, I mean, the background of Maxims. I mean, I know the background, of course, but people listening would like to know, this business was started by your dad. So why don't you, like, say, we'll hear it from the horse's mouth, so to say. Tell us about your family business.
Sure.
How your dad started it and so on.
Even I think starting this business was not something that my dad had planned. Earlier, before getting into chairs, my dad was into another business, into these, blinds that were used back then,
Yeah.
So one fine day, somebody asked him that, can you also make a chair? And that was completely out of syllabus for him. So he went to the market, purchased all the raw materials, got those home, and tried to assemble a chair himself. And one thing led to another. That's how we started getting more inquiries and demand for these kind of office chairs. That's how we ultimately, set up a unit, hired a few people. That grew, and that was the IT boom back then, to 2000, early 2000.
Right.
So everyone was setting up offices, and there were very few players who were actually manufacturing. So that was the early stage beginning, and there was no WhatsApp, no email, no social media. So it was, I'm myself amazed in those days back then. How did he do what he did, kind of get those early bunch of customers roaming here and there in the heat and the rain? So that's definitely an inspiring journey. And yeah.
Right, and then of course your mother joined, and then they grew the business. I've witnessed a little part of it, because your dad was around for a few years after I joined BNI, and I've had a lot of interactions with him. He was almost like a mentor to me. He would put his hand across my shoulder and say, okay, ye kar, wo kar. So Parth, I mean, of course, the seating industry has grown tremendously in the last few years. I remember the early days, like you said, the IT boom, even in the early 90s, people used to actually sit on wooden chairs in offices.
Right.
Then as the corporate office culture began, the ergonomic chairs would come. I mean, most of them would be imported actually.
Right.
From various parts of the world. And your company is one of those early pioneers in actually making them.
Right.
So what has changed in the last few years? I mean, I saw somewhere in your introduction that you make chairs suited to people's needs. You make certain chairs which are for height. I mean, height even now it's there, but depending on person's weight and so on. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So initially, when I got into the business, I realized, Vipul, that there are many professions who require specially designed chairs, which is not being catered to by the players in the market. So, for example, if somebody is extremely overweight, I remember making a chair for somebody who was almost like weighing around 160, 175 kilos. So making something for him so that he's comfortable, creating that kind of space in the seat, making it spacious enough for him to not just use it for long hours, but also be able to use the functions properly. So that is a segment which is still struggling to find the right chair combination, because most chairs which are manufactured in the market, Vipul, are for the average person,
Right.
Average height, average weight, all those kind of things. And mostly people these days just look at a chair by, bhai, this looks good, let me buy it, without looking at the comfort element. So that is a very interesting creative field, of course. And we also end up working with a lot of interior designers who obviously look at comfort, but they also look at design. So every time they design a new office, they want a new type of chair. So that is a very interesting, yet immensely satisfying job for us, where
Correct.
we are always thinking of newer ways to make new things. Even now, Vipul, it's been 30 years now. Still, we make chairs many times, something that we have never made before. So there's an element of surprise, mystery, uncertainty, and yet very creatively satisfying.
Okay. So there's a question on the group. This question comes from Janisha Patel.
Okay.
The question is, her question is, what makes a chair ergonomic, and why is that important?
Okay. So, what makes a chair ergonomic is there's no fixed formula. I wish there was, but it's like, it's like sitting on a chair is like probably wearing the right fitted clothes or the right
Right.
fitted blazer or jacket. So it's just about the right fit. What might be comfortable for you may not be comfortable for me. So it's always a good idea to try out various chairs and decide what suits you.
Right.
This term ergonomic basically refers to a design which is user friendly, which can be used for longer hours, but it's important for you to try it out. And ergonomics is not limited just to chairs, it spreads across everything, the entire furniture industry, everything, technology for that matter. So even sofas can be ergonomically designed. So if you go to a sofa showroom, you'll end up trying out 10 sofas. You'll tell me, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, because it's suited to your body, your comfort, and that's what matters at the end of the day.
So tell us about, I mean, you've been around for 9 years, 9.5 years or something
Yeah.
like that. So tell us about some of your own personal success stories, uh, you know, after having joined the business. And you have to tell us about how you got into Mr. Bachchan's house or office that you got into.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So, I think it just happened by chance, or I don't have a logical reason to put into it. So, as
Okay.
I told you, I joined the business with no plans, thinking, "Chalo, I'll help out." After a few months, I really realized कि चलो यार कुछ करना चाहिए. Tried to figure out various things. How can we increase the business and stuff? Took me, I think, about 3 to 4 years to really get a hang of it. And by the time I got a hang of it, Vipul, COVID struck.
Ah,
So, and our only product back then was an revolving office chair, which was only used in offices, and all offices were shut. So I was like, now I'm in a soup, what to do? And that's when people started spending time in their homes. We got queries asking, can you redo our sofa? Can you give us a new dining chair? Because they were spending more time at their homes. That's when we realized that that's a great opportunity where we can enter into. So that was a great pivot turning point, I think, for us, and also a success story. That during that time we also diversified our product range, got into much larger scope of furniture solutions for homes, offices, restaurants. So today we not only provide chairs to an office, but an entire segment of furniture and sofas and center tables, or for a residence, the entire furniture scope. So that has not only allowed us to enter a larger market, but also
right.
meet newer kinds of people, engage with newer types of products. And so I think that's been a great success story for us. That's how we have learned our lesson of not to keep all eggs in one basket. And I'm very happy that we did that back then, because that's how we got on to new things.
Right.
And in fact, you mentioned Mr. Bachchan. In fact, doing up Amitabh Bachchan's residence was incidentally our very first residential project.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
and even I'm surprised how. But
Right.
I remember attending an exhibition. A lot of exhibitions happen in our industry. I was attending one specific exhibition. There I met an interior designer, and we kind of connected. So he told me, I have a specific requirement. Why don't you come over, visit the place once? So this place was on the 46th floor of a building called Atlantis at Andheri West.
Okay.
So that was actually purchased by Mr. Bachchan, and he wanted to give it on rent. So he wanted to kind of furnish the entire thing before giving it up. So that's where I was called, and what a beautiful view, location. I was like, wow, what a privilege it is to finally, do something interesting. And even back then, whatever items that we made for him were all completely new. So I was completely amazed on how things are going to be made, what is the process. So as a young kid, I used to, we had hired a new set of workers, new set of equipment to, make that happen. So definitely something that we are happy, delighted about, that we got a chance to work with such a celebrity. Of course, I never got a chance to meet him, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
but it's always a nice thing to be able to, supply to a property which he owned.
Superb, superb. That's a great story. What about Isha Ambani?
So again, very interesting. And of course, it was not a direct contact, but I remember one lady who contacted us through Instagram saying that I want to make a few things for my residence. And she was like, why don't you come over to my residence? And that was a very odd new feeling, Vipul, because I have never visited a residence in all these years. It's always been an office setup. So I felt very weird, odd, कि मैं किसी के घर पे जा रहा हूँ, कैसे बात करूंगा. So I went there, completely under construction. All the people are working, and there is this young lady who is dictating the terms to everyone. And she told me a few things. Um, Gradually, that didn't click, the requirement of her small tiny house, but she ended up connecting with us later where she was working. And then after a few years, she joined Piramal as an architect. And that is how she contacted us to make dining tables for Isha Ambani's residence, which is at Worli Seaface.
Right.
So for a trial, she asked us to make one table. The clients liked it, and that's how they placed order for 5, 6 more tables. I remember, she asked me to come during the first table delivery. She asked me to come personally there. And I all, went all suited up, decked up, thinking I'll get a chance to meet Isha Ambani. Of course, that was not the case. But what a beautiful palace they have made, and it was definitely a moment to cherish.
Super, yeah. I mean, these are exciting moments,
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
one's career. Okay, so and you've also done, I believe, supplied to hotels abroad. I mean, especially
Yes,
New York, hotels in New York. So, can you tell us about
yes.
your international foray in that sense?
Sure. So I think internationally we have done 3 restaurants, one office in Canada, recently sent a sofa set to a residence in the US. So all these are people who are either based in India and they kind of buy it from us and then they do the entire export
Okay.
logistics thing. So this same lady who went to Piramal earlier, she was working in a US company, and she kind of connected with us, and through her we did furniture for these 3 restaurants at Brooklyn. And that was an interesting, very exciting experience on how it will turn out, whether it will reach safely or not. So it was definitely a new experience, and yeah, something to remember. And then through our interior design company, we did an office in Canada where we made a lot of lounge chairs and center tables for them. So yeah, happy to help people abroad as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, there's a question from Rashi. The
Hmm.
question is, how is your design process different when you work with hotels versus office spaces?
Hmm. Okay,
Is
very
there any
interesting.
difference? And if there is a difference, what is it?
Sure, very interesting. So our major forte lies actually in manufacturing and not so much in design. So the kind of people that we work with are designers themselves. They are architects or interior designers who have already chalked up the plan, the sizes, proportions of various furniture pieces. And
Right.
one of the important things that happens for a restaurant, for example, is the sampling process, where
Right.
even though they might have designed the world's best chair, but only after you make it, you realize what are the faults in this. So even in this US restaurant project, they asked us to make one sample. We shipped it out there. And after that, they gave us a few comments, feedback, things need to be changed. And only after that, we did the remaining production. And that sampling happens mainly in restaurants and hotels because the quantity is large. For an office space, not so much. And people usually prefer to go with either, if it's a unique exclusive piece, it's just one or two pieces.
Yeah.
So in that case, most things that we do is we do site markings on site to check how much space is available, and sometimes we develop a 3D drawing model to show the interior designer this is how your chair will look like with the specifications, colors, proportions, all those
Right.
things. So I think that is enough for somebody to get an idea.
Yeah, I mean, typically in offices, because of these cubicle sizes being the same, plus they need to
Right.
maintain
Right.
uniformity between people. I guess
Right.
there is not too much of a scope for creativity there. Yeah.
Yes, but still, I mean, people are as creative as there's no limit to that, and we always enjoy working with people because earlier when we were making office chairs, it was just making 100 pieces of the same thing.
Right.
But here, even if we are making 100 pieces, each piece is different and unique. So that's the surprise element.
Okay, having spoken about your successes, I mean, were there any significant challenges? And I'm sure there were.
Sure.
So, can you walk us through some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame those?
Sure, absolutely. So as I told you, I joined the business with no previous experience,
Right.
and I was completely new. It was like a leap of faith, jumping in the ocean directly. And my dad started expecting from day one that I'll grow the business, and I had no clue what a business is in the first place.
Right.
So that was a very challenging period. Even though I also genuinely wanted to grow, but I didn't know how to do it. So
Right.
the initial couple of years were very tough and challenging because I tried various things. Some worked, some didn't. But at the end of the day, the numbers were practically the same. At the end of every year, for the first 3-4 years, they were practically the same. So I felt very disappointing. I sometimes felt like leaving. I realized sometimes I used to think, this is not for me. Maybe I can do something better. Maybe let's go back doing a job. Maybe let me come back better trained and prepared for a role like this. So a
Right.
lot of issues, confidence went down, anxiety, stress, all kinds of things. So that was more of a mentally more challenging phase because I couldn't see
Right.
results. And how I overcame is simply by signing up for various business courses and workshops. It could be a one day thing to 3 months, 6 months, yearly, whatever I could grab my hands on and try to implement whatever made sense. And I think that's how I think whatever has happened has been the fruit of implementing these things because I came with zero knowledge. So I think
Right.
that's how we have kind of done whatever we could. And another challenge was COVID, like I mentioned, because I didn't know. It almost felt like darkness and the end of things because there was no demand. So that
Yeah.
was actually a phase of literally rising from the ashes and to
Right.
figure out what to do next. So those have been key major challenges when it comes to the journey so far.
Yeah, I remember during COVID we used to interact, and you
Mm,
said that you made a significant pivot at that
mm.
time when you actually started manufacturing for other BNI members in the chair category.
Yes.
And so they needed a reliable manufacturing support, and you
Mm,
had
mm.
lots of spare capacity, so you kind of collaborated and helped each other. So can you walk us through that bit a little bit, if you remember?
Yeah, so because everyone was at home, didn't know what to do, suddenly there was this, upsurge of WhatsApp groups, all kinds of, where BNI members came together, formed regional groups and city level ones and all those things. That's how I reached out to many people and they got in touch because they didn't have their own, existing suppliers. And I think that was the beginning of literally also taking our business beyond Mumbai and not just chairs but also supplying various kind of furnitures to members all across the country for their showrooms, for their clients. I think we have done work with around 10 to 15 such people out there outside
Right.
where they were looking for a manufacturer because obviously they are reselling, so they
Right.
want the best rates and quality and service and all those things. So I think that was also exciting, to be able to send items to places which I had never heard of. So yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you that helped you sustain. I mean, that low phase in your business. I think that kind of helped you remain slightly head above water till things came back to normal. Because and plus it helped them as well because they had somebody whom they can rely upon.
True. I think sustaining was never a problem, Vipul, because suddenly there is this new trend of work from home.
Ah,
So I remember in the thick of COVID madness, lockdown, I was literally forced to open my office shutters and give away whatever chairs I had, because people had lined up and they were like, just give me anything because I want to work from home.
ah,
So that was one crazy affair. One company, IT company, contacted us saying, we have employees all over the country. We want you to send chairs to their doorstep. So this was about a 300 chairs assignment, and sending
individual chairs.
individual chairs to their doorstep in a way that they don't need to install and they can use it right away.
Right.
So taking care of packing, logistics, transport, sending to completely unknown locations, about 15 to 20 states. So that was a very interesting exercise.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So I'll ask a very different question than
Sure.
the ones I've been asking so far. So, as they say these days, sitting is the new smoking.
Hmm.
It sounds like a cliche, but it's a real problem that exists.
Hmm.
You know, uh, so tell us how do you and I mean Maxims create products that help you know deal with this, with activity being low, being sedentary. We touched upon that a little earlier, but what is it that you do to assuage the situation and help people uh, you know lessen the damage, so to say, because sitting
Sure.
and working is a reality. You can't do much about that, but how can
Sure.
you help?
Sure, sure. So earlier, a few years earlier, we had started a new category of chairs called active seating chairs, which
Right.
in fact promoted a better posture, better health, better blood circulation, and which actually did away with all the negativity that comes with normal sitting.
Right.
And we had introduced two new kinds of chairs in the market, but unfortunately, I realized that it's going to require decades, not just years, but decades of awareness building for people to actually kind of grow up to something like this. So
Right.
obviously, we kind of sold out to many people, but people who are really conscious or who are really struggling with back pain since many years. As they say, prevention is better than cure, but it's only when it really hurts people look out for solutions. So it's
Correct.
only when somebody has been facing a slip disc issue for a decade that they will look out for the right chair solution. So yeah, so we did those two things, but it didn't really make a lot of commercial sense back then. It was a good experiment, but I feel that have a long way to go on that sense. And it is not just sitting, but it's, I think, our entire overall lifestyle where we are. It's not just about our sitting habits, but also about the food, about the kind of environment that we sit in, about the kind of travel, the kind of cars that we have for our commute. So I think
Correct.
it's an entire package. It's not just the chair to blame.
Correct.
And people sometimes go to the very extreme and they say, oh, now I'll stand, I'll keep standing the entire day. But
Yeah.
that also comes with its side effects,
Challenges.
its
Yeah.
challenges. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So there are some people who try out various things, like working while, walking on the treadmill and stuff like that. There are many innovative concepts, and I think it's to each his own.
Right. So you alluded to this at the start as well. I mean, I can think of any self-development course, and when I talk to you about it, you would have already done it, or you're in the process of doing it. I mean, when I say any, I mean, I don't mean every, but most of the well-known ones. So self-development is a big thing for you. Plus, I'm fascinated by the number of things you do. You went on this 15-day trip without a phone and things like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
please explain that part. I mean, why do you do these things, and what
Why do you
what
do
does
these
it do to
things?
you? Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to learn these things.
Why do you do these things?
Yeah, I mean, What drives you to experiment with these things? Okay, let me ask you
No, I
differently.
think it just out of interest, pure curiosity. One of the earliest encounters was actually signing up for a 10-day silence meditation course called Vipassana, where you can't read, you can't write, you can't even communicate through gestures, you can't talk. So you're in total silence for 10 days, and that was a fabulous adventure ride.
Right.
So something, things like those. Then we did like a bicycle trip with a
Yeah,
bunch
that's the
of
one I was.
total strangers, 10, 15 people went on to a village, hired these dudhwala type cycles, no money, no phone, just see what happens for a week. uh, you know so things like those really help me to sometimes come out of my comfort zone and really shake me up and really let me see the world, that there are many more things beyond my narrow vision of how I look at things. So yeah, so it's as and when I keep trying out doing various things, attending courses, not just to my connected to my work but also otherwise, and that makes life much more enriching than just being focused on the numbers.
Interesting, because more people would actually try to do things that bring them closer to their comfort zone. You kind of try to do things that take you away from your comfort zone. I mean, kudos to you for doing that. Yeah. Normally, people would do things that they like doing.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes.
imbibe a new one every 4 years or 5 years, but
Yeah.
you kind of try to do different things. So you've been one of the few people who's, I mean, or few, or I mean, one of the many, but not too many of them, people who actually uh, do networking in a big way. I mean, I've seen you interact with more members in BNI outside of your own chapter.
Mhm.
Uh, what is the process? What do you do? How do you reach out? I mean, I'm sure people would like to know that. I'm not sure if people come and ask you, but I'm sure they would like to know how is it that this guy is always thanking people from different parts of the country for
Yeah.
doing business. Some cities they might have not even heard of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
So how do you do that? Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
No, I wish there was a process there. I wish there was a system that I follow, but I think because I simply love building relationships, I love meeting new people, and I think that's the fuel. And that's why it's not that things don't happen in a very systematic manner. It's very organic. Sometimes it's somebody from within Mumbai, sometimes it's outside, sometimes it comes through a reference. Like few weeks ago, I got a message from BNI Connect from a BNI Dubai member, so no credit at my end. She kind of got in touch, and that's how I got that work. So yeah, I simply love meeting people. So sometimes I end up attending a few BNI trainings here and there,
Right.
and it's also through word of mouth and goodwill. Maybe a customer who I have worked with, they refer me to somebody in their chapter or in their network, and that person ends up being a BNI member, or even otherwise. So I think it's just about providing good quality work, good service, with a happy smiling face. And I think, yeah, what else? I wish there was a formula to this.
Yeah, I mean, you've actually revealed a lot of formulas. जिसको समझना है वो बराबर समझ जाएगा. Okay, there's a question from Rajesh Mishra.
Okay.
I think I'll take it here because very interesting question that he's asked. He says, "Have you ever had a celebrity make a unique or surprising request for a chair?"
So
I
one
mean,
is
it
I
need not
have,
be a celebrity. I mean, it can be
yeah, yeah,
anybody
yeah.
else also. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one is I have never dealt with celebrities directly. It's always been via, which is fine, no problem. But there have been a lot of unusual requests from people, and which I've covered already. Like few of them, people being completely overweight, or somebody having a specific medical issue. So we have helped people, having slip disc issues, or people who are working in the salon for and standing for many hours, or housewives who have been standing in the kitchen and having leg issues. So we have helped those people with different types of chairs. Um, Also, I remember this one customer in Chennai who wanted a similar thing for his wife so that she could sit and then work in the kitchen. So we gave her a chair, but that chair was without a backrest. And yet she was very happy with it and, really enjoyed it. After a few weeks, that same guy told us that, I want a chair for my for my own use as well, but give me the best, give me something really fancy and advanced, and with all that jazz, and something that also takes care of my posture. So I remember we ordered a special chair from him, I think imported, that had costed around 2.5, 3 lakhs. And that was also an interesting thing where we were able to really help him with exactly what he was looking for. But more recently now, Vipul, since we work with interior designers, architects, builders, it's at a larger scale, at a bigger volume kind of a level, where
Right.
they are the ones who find out the wackiest and the uniquest of designs from all over the world. And our challenge simply is to kind of turn that into
Turn
reality.
that into, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, there's a question from Aisha Patel. The
Hmm.
question is, are luxury chairs always comfortable,
Hmm.
or do they sometimes focus more on design?
Hmm. Nice. So, design, so comfort, looks, design, aesthetics are all a part of luxury, and it again, luxury is also a very subjective word. For you, probably a 50,000 rupee chair might be luxury, and for somebody else, it might be a very basic version. So it's a very subjective thing, and it totally depends on your taste, on
Right.
what you like. For example, I might look at a luxury throne with these, really carving done and medieval kind of a look and feel, and I may not personally like it, as a personal taste. But
Right.
that doesn't mean that it's not luxury. So it totally is. It's a very vague. It's a very fluid concept as such
Right.
on what you call luxury. But I feel ultimately it's the comfort, the design, the style. I think that's what makes a total package.
So, Parth, what next for you? I mean, how, if you look into your crystal ball, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, I mean, or do you not do it? Do you just live life as it happens? And I'm sure you do some planning. Yeah. So, how do
Uh,
you see yourself 5, 10, 15 years from today?
well, every time I've asked this question to myself, Vipul, I've had a lot of difficulty envisioning anything.
Right.
But obviously, this North Star vision remains of being able to go on a complete vacation.
Okay.
I go on vacations now also, and the business goes up. But
Right.
it's sometimes I'm also active in those cases.
Right.
But I would like to completely switch off maybe for 3 6 months and come back and see, wow, the numbers have increased. So
Okay.
that is one thing I would definitely want to reach to. And that's why we are currently in the process of also hiring higher quality people for our front end, back end, making it much more systematic, so that there is lesser reliance on me as a person, and
Right.
the team kind of takes care of things at the back end.
Right. And any other personal mission that you have? I mean, other than, of course, going on a 3-month holiday.
Well, personal mission, I mean, as long as I can be a good human being, kind, gentle, loving, to be able to look at the needs of the others, I think that's more than enough.
Okay. And one last question before we close. You've been a member of BNI now in what 8 years now, I think.
Yes,
eight
8 years.
years, yeah. And you've been part of the leadership team of our chapter. You've been part of the regional team for a little while. So, how did that experience contribute to your growth as a person, and also, in your own leadership in your company?
Sure. So I think being in the leadership team was a game changer for me, because before I took up that, I was very afraid, Vipul, ki how will I manage time, because there's so much to be done.
Right.
And interestingly, in those 6 months, I did many things which I kind of can't imagine myself to be doing now. Like in those 6 months, I moved to a new place, took up a larger factory, um, went on an international holiday, and from there I used to conduct BNI meetings, did many things which literally seemed impossible, and did the maximum ever business in BNI in those 6 months compared to all my previous 6 months before. So it's actually amazing to put it. And being in the regional team, leadership team, all these extra additional responsibilities have only taught me how I can work smarter, how I can finish something in 2 hours instead of taking 10 hours for that. And I think I really owe my gratitude and credit to that kind of a system for that. And yeah, so I'm still learning on how I can kind of compress things so that I have more free time and I can chill and I can answer such interesting questions.
Okay. All right. And any final words of advice that you may have for youngsters who are listening to this conversation on how they can undertake the business networking journey?
So I think what really matters, Vipul, is confidence in yourself, confidence in the product or service that you're selling. And yeah, and I think just a nice, genuine, warm heart. I think that's what it needs for you to, because I feel business is all about people, it's all about relationships. The suppliers, customers, vendors, clients, everyone that I interact with are ultimately people. So if I'm able to connect with them, I think that's a good start.
Okay, before I let you go, there is one more question which has come on the group, so I have to ask
Sure.
you this. So it
Sure.
comes from Anand Sharma. The question is, what are some new trends in luxury furniture that you are excited about right now?
Well, so new trends are, I think for me, the most exciting part is to take up challenges. So every time, because every designer that I work with comes up with a new style, comes up with a new design that they want us to replicate. And I think that is where I find the maximum joy in. Trends might come and go, but every designer comes up with newer, different things. Overall, if you look at the overall kind of design world or the trend right now, is there is a lot of comeback of old materials like cane, wicker, wood, to create a warm, earthy kind of a feel in residences. And even these days, offices are also trying to have that warmth kind of a feel in offices as well, to make it nice, creative for people to work at. So there's a lot of change happening. And I think I'm happy that we are able to enable and make that change happen for spaces around us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Parth, for sparing the time. I know you had a little bit of a medical situation to attend to in your family, but still you made time, reached the podcast on time, and were generous with your answers. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. And I hope that you are able to do your 3-month vacation very soon,
Sure.
and your business grows while you're away from your business.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.